Welcome to the Her Story podcast with Mandolin Freeland and Marcely Whippenden, plus special guests. We are dedicated to sharing women's stories from all walks of life. We will be diving into experiences, challenges, and triumphs. If you are a woman, then this podcast is for you, and we are so glad you found us.
Hi, hey listeners. Welcome to our show today. I have my sister Marcy with us. Say hello, Marcy.
Hi.
And our special guest today is Therese Taylor. Hi, Therese.
How are you guys?
All right. So, of course, on our podcast, our whole mission is to interview as many women as we can and have them share their story. I don't know about you guys, but I love hearing people's stories. I could just do that all day long. And so we're starting, of course, with individuals that we know, Marcy and I, because we know a lot of incredible women. And Therese is just that. I've known Therese now for many, many years, and we have something big in common. We both own a beauty school. Call us crazy, but that's what we have in common. And we are seriously like good friends because it's just nice to be able to bounce things off of each other and have someone that knows exactly what we're going through without necessarily taking that home all the time. So Tressa, thank you so much for joining us and being willing to kind of share insights to your story with us. But I'm going to have you tell us a little bit about who you are.
Okay, well, I don't know where to begin because this year I turned 60. So you can imagine all the chapters of my life, all of the things that make up who I am, obviously.
And 60, wait, did you say 60? I would have never guessed. You look incredible.
I think every time I hit a decade, I think, 30 was so horrible. And then 40 was okay. And then 50 was just like fun. And now I'm like, oh no, so I'm spending a lot of time now reflecting on, my journey and where I've gotten, how I've gotten here, and that I'm here with you ladies. And I survived cancer, and I'm just so grateful that I get to do more with my life. Okay. But I will start from the beginning really quickly. I was born in the Netherlands. I'm from a family of 9 children. We were definitely stood out. Europe, people don't have more than maybe 1 or 2 kids. So to have 9, we were really the outliers. And my parents really felt like they wanted to get out of Europe. And so in the 70s, mid 70s, I was around 12 years old. They decided they were just my dad was going to retire. He had 4 kids at BYU and UVU, or BYU and BYU Idaho at the time. And so they just brought us all over. We'd already lived in the States one other time, but this was like permanent. So as immigrants, no English, they just dropped us off at school and just go and figure this out. And I think that's where I kind of learned my grit. It's like, if I can do that and I can show up at school and not know anyone and learn that kind of like, come over that fear of like, new culture, new people. Kids here are totally different than they are in Europe in so many good ways and in different ways. That was really the beginning of my story. It's like, what am I going to do with my life? Am I going to go to college? Am I going to, my mother needed somebody to do her hair. So she's like, why don't you just go to hair school? This will be fun. And so when I was in high school, I decided I really struggled in high school with the culture. I think was just like really crazy to me. I didn't really feel like I fit in with that. I just wasn't raised that way, and so I was really happy to graduate from high school and get out and move on. And I went to a school in Salt Lake and got my hair license and had to pay my own way through college. And so I just figured, okay, well, I'm a hairdresser. I love hair, but I'm going to do what all my siblings are doing, and I'm going to go to college. And so I started college, and met my husband, and about 10 years, let's see, we've been married like 20, almost 20 years. And my youngest of my 4 children had just started kindergarten. And my husband had this really fun idea. Why don't we start a hair school? And I think I'm just like dumb enough not to realize what's coming, because I've been so used to having to adapt my life. And okay, this will be great. I've got Jay figuring all this out, and all I have to do is teach hair, and it'll be so fun. And yeah, so I think just like life is just one challenge after another, right? And so not having that fear around, you know, life's hard. It's hard for all of us. Life is hard for everyone, but those added challenges, either we go one way or the other, right? We say, we're going to take this challenge, and what could go wrong, or we'll figure it out one day at a time, or you're the kind of person that just, you know, that's passes up the opportunities of. I always had this fear that if I pass something up and then later I might have regretted it, then I have that to live with. And so what's the worst that can happen? Well, yeah, I could lose everything,
Right.
but I think in
Yeah.
my mind, I'm just thinking, coming to America, everybody has such opportunity here, and people can start businesses and they can thrive, and people can make money. You can have everything.
Especially Utah. Utah, we thrive at
We
that.
do. And I love that part of being a citizen and being an American, is to say, I can do anything. And we have the best health care. So, out of like, my parents gave us such a gift of moving here, even though we came with pretty much kind of like, they didn't have the money to help us pay for college. But just being from a great family and having learned that, that grit of, we just go overcome things. My parents overcame the Second World War. They lived through that, and anything else is just awesome. So
Yeah, I think you're right. You nailed it. Like with, I think most business owners, we think similarly. We don't think. That's our problem, right? We like a lot of times we will like dive in to something. I'm that way. I'm just like, oh yeah, this is a great idea. I'm passionate about it. I'm diving in. And like you said, we're just kind of naive. And not everybody, but we were. And had no idea what to expect. And so I think it's fun that we have each other and, other school owners that we're friends with to kind of help support and yeah, it just takes a lot. We had no idea what we were getting into. So what do you think have been some of the big wins for you? And also, I know we're a little bit different in the way that your husband is kind of your partner in business, where my husband is not involved really at all. So tell us a little bit about how that works for you guys and what some of your big wins have been in life with the
well, I've
business.
always been a firm believer in being around people that are smarter than you, because it really makes you have a backup plan. Because I always feel like, I'm going to hire the best director I can think of, and she'll take care of this side of it. And then my husband's going to take care of the financial side of it and take all the risk somewhat, and being able to make sure that we make payroll and get the building and the contracts. And all of that is totally out of my expertise. But you really can start any business you want as long as you have the right people in the room, right? You have got the right um, people to back you up and can cover for the areas. We all cannot really do it all. We can't. If we think we can, I think that you're really closing yourself opportunities to let other people be part of that with you, the right people, and then it can thrive. But think for me, that's the biggest. Like, my wins came because I had the right people. And then that took away enough fear that I felt like I could go to the next step and the next step. So we started with cosmetology, and then we started asking questions. Moms are having a hard time, finding daycare. So what do? We open a daycare for our moms, which is not a great business decision, because it's expensive and it doesn't really make, we weren't charging for it. But we felt like, at a time when my daughter had a baby, My director had a child. My instructors all had kids. So that was maybe just like, even though it was a losing proposition and we ended it at right during COVID, we closed it. It were so many things that came out of that and so many wins that people were able to use that and actually be able to work and bring their kids to work. So the idea of it sometimes, even though it wasn't a win financially, it was a huge win in opportunity for others and for me to be able to get the right instructors I wanted. I could always have free daycare, like come work for me, you know? And then in the end, I could say, wow, that cost me a lot of money. And then I have to look at it from the other side. So that was a huge win, but it wasn't a financial win, right? So that was a win.
Yeah, I think that's important though, because in business, sometimes we take one step back and two steps forward. But like you said, that's what you needed at that time. That's what your team needed at that time. And we don't we don't do things forever, like we have to evolve. And so you set a trend back then that I know myself and other school owners were looking at like, whoa, that's a pretty cool thing. And I had students and staff saying, hey, why don't we do a daycare? And I'm like, oh, maybe. But I looked at all the negatives and I was like, I don't want to deal with that. So I was like, when I learned that you had stopped, I'm like, okay, now we're all on the same page again. But I was proud of you for doing that. And like you said, it's not always the best financial decision, but it worked for you guys for a time. And I think that's something that's really cool, is what we learn personally from having businesses and what we grow, by making those mistakes, or maybe not necessarily mistakes, but things that we do. So I think that was really cool of you. You definitely set a trend in the industry and it worked for a minute. So
Well, I think
good job.
I'm reading a book right now about asking the right questions. And when I look back now at when I made shifts in things or made decisions around my family or myself, or I have to ask myself questions and say, why am I doing it this way? And why is it not working? And then I have to, like, instead of complaining and asking the right questions, asking questions to other people, asking myself those questions, and then it opens it up to more intelligence to be able to, because we get like in this rut where we think, okay, nothing's going bad right now, so let's not do anything. Let's not make any changes. We always need to be asking for the problems. What are the problems I'm facing right now? Because there's always problems. I know there's problems in my business. There's always something going on that maybe not be very big. It might be a feather that's just tickling us and giving us a little hint around what might be around the corner. I don't want to be hit by a dump truck, right? So I'm trying to create some questions around what is it I can do different? How can we come up with a plan so that if something like this happens, we have, so not anything to create more work for myself, but it actually gives me more peace inside to know that I have a backup plan for, if I lose this instructor, I can do this. If I can consolidate things. I can, like you said, Mandolin, we have to, like, how do I get students to come to school more? And then in my personal life, I have these questions that come up, like, how do I manage my time? My husband's home more now. How do we learn to enjoy things together? Instead of like, oh, he's in my, like, why is he home all the time? And like, what, why, I wish he would go to work more. Or like, I feel like, oh, maybe I should, like, I'm asking the wrong questions. The question should be, what can I do to create a space, a container that both of us can be happy in and thrive in, and maybe give up if, like, maybe do something that he enjoys doing, and then maybe he tries to do something that I enjoy doing, and creating a plan around it rather than just like letting things happen to us, because that's the worst, right?
Absolutely. You're doing awesome at helping all of us, our listeners, know like some ways to find happiness, right? Because life is going to be thrown at us. Life is going to happen, and you're right. We've got to ask questions. We can't just ignore those things, and we have to look for the good and look for positive solutions. So I love that. And I love that about you. And you're right. Like the grit that you gained when you were growing up is definitely helpful in you running your business and being able to just roll with the punches. And I think that's so great. And I know that everybody that knows you loves and adores your personality. You're just fun to be around and very like easygoing and maybe lighthearted in a lot of ways. And so I love you for that. Talk to us a little bit about this cancer journey. I know you got a little emotional sharing that, and just being on the sidelines, watching you go through this as your friend. It's been heavy, and I just am always in awe. I know there's days where I've texted you and you don't text me back. And then like a day or two later, you're like, okay, I've been really doing bad. And today's a good day. So tell us about what that's been like for you and the family and even your work family.
Well, just not to go into too much detail, because obviously, like I was saying before, I think we all have challenges. All have hard things. And I used to think that cancer was this big, huge, like everybody's gonna die, and like you never, ever, ever want to get that. And then I realized it's not really even the cancer that gave me. I had a tumor in my salivary gland, and then I find out it's super rare and hardly anybody gets it, and so there's not really any treatment, but to just cut and do surgeries. So my husband's always like, don't worry about anything unless you can do something about it. I'm like, okay, well, let's walk through cancer and then we'll see how we can't do anything about it. And then we just don't worry, because that doesn't work. That was like, seemed like at the time, he wants to be positive. You're going to make it. Like, I know I'm going to make it, but what's that going to look like? Like, I just had already decided, like, I feel like I'm going to live a pretty long life. I don't know why I know that. I just feel that around myself. And so it was kind of like I was living somebody else's life. Have you ever been in a situation where you're like having a great deal of stress and you almost feel like you're another person watching that person going through things, and it's just almost like out of your control, obviously. And so you're just going through the motions of surgeries and all the radiation, and then a year later it came back and they had to do a bunch of more surgeries and they cut my nerve. I did my face and I was able to get it restored, and they ended up closing my ear years after that because I kept getting bleeding out of my ear. And so now I have like a Baja device. And so I think overcoming, it's more about like how you're going to live through, because cancer, people think cancer is like, the cancer isn't what really made me sick. It was the radiation. And it was probably like, I had to learn how to take care of myself better. So I had to learn how to like not just pick up and go and do everything. I had to learn to slow down and know that was okay. And I had to just tell myself, it's going to come out the way it's supposed to. In my heart, I know I'm not going to die young, but at the same time, it's super scary. So it's gone. I'm in remission completely because I've hit the 8-year mark. So at this point, there's no treatment, no more. The treatment didn't work, but they try it just in case. But then I start looking at all these other people that are going through these challenges, and I'm like, wow, I can talk to these people now, and I don't feel weird around, because people felt strange around me, and they didn't want to say, how, like, they almost didn't say anything to me. When at the time I was like, thought that was really interesting because I didn't think it was that terrible, even though it was pretty bad. But in my mind, I'm positive, and so I think, why won't anybody say anything to me? Because they feel awkward and uncomfortable, and they don't want to say the wrong thing, or like, hey, are you okay now? Or like, so I think it taught me a lot of empathy around people that have gone through specific things. And that's the best part that came out of that, is I know now there's so many treatments, and just because somebody gets cancer doesn't mean they're going to die. And if they did die, it's every single cancer is a different disease. And so I learned all that. And then now that I find out if someone gets it or is diagnosed with it, I can actually like approach them and say something to them, where before I would have never I would avoid it, and I would probably talk around it. So I've learned a lot of empathy around that, but then it gave me more empathy around all kinds of other things that people struggle with, right? Like physically struggle with. So a little more sensitive to, I used to just say, well, why do people even get sick? Why do you miss work? Why you just, like I was just maybe a little bit more like tough on the outside around things like that. And now I feel like what a like has a master's degree in like empathy. I just feel like, wow, I just really slow to judge and slow to, you know, form opinions around what I think how people should be or it are. And I'm very much about now trying to be curious around things, where before maybe it just was really what I needed, you know.
I love how positive you are, and like everything you've went through, it's like you just keep taking the positive out of it and just turning it like for the better. And it's like you said, now I like have my master's degree in empathy. Like that's so amazing. I just love how positive you are, and it sounds like your husband is the same way. But I'm sure that that whole process was not easy, even though you look at it, positive. You're sick. You're going through different things, but you're also running this big business at the same time. Like how was that? I'm sure you had a lot of days where it's like I can't do anything, and like you said, you probably had a good team there supporting and backing you up. But how during those 8 years, how was it with being sick and running your business?
I Again, I think it came back to like I've got the right people around me. And
Hmm.
so my job is to just make sure I'm at my best when I hate to say this, but I've had to kind of divorce from some relationships that I've had that I felt like, I'm a firm believer now in being around people, like taking advice from people or who I want to emulate, who I want to be like. So I try to take the negativity out of friendships and start realizing that is that person serving me in a way that I can even, or is it just every time I'm around them, I feel negative and I'm just not growing. I'm just not really, not that like when I say that divorce word, that sounds really harsh, but mentally, I've kind of divorced myself from, I used to get really into people's, I feel very like want to fix things around people and like want to help people and take over in their areas. And I've learned to set really strong boundaries around like where I have to decide, am I going to give this energy or am I going to let it play itself out? Because in the end, I don't want to cross over into someone else's lane. And I've had to do that with my kids. Like, I'm not going to start making decisions for you. If something, been some challenges there too with obviously you're raising children. And so trying to not get into their lane and letting them have some failures at the same time they're having wins, but not over analyzing everything anymore. It's calmed me to just take things more how they are. Obviously, everybody, we're all up and down, right? Every day is a different day, and every day is a new way that we think. And every day we have decisions we have to make around how, like, my husband will have to catch me and say, okay, don't like get too involved in, and the same thing goes for like social media and things that I get caught up in. It's like it starts to like wear me down. And I'm more sensitive to it now where before I could just, oh, I could watch anything, I could read anything, I could get into like drama shows more. And I've gotten more sensitive around it, but it's also made me, I think, a better human. So that now I can say, is any of that even real over there on that side of it? And am I wasting my time like in this entertainment life of that, or am I going to try to, you know, read something interesting and learn something every day? I'm trying to learn Spanish. I'm not the kind of person that picks up things and wants to be learning all the time, but I've made that shift in instead of spending this much time over here, I'm going to spend 20 minutes over here trying to learn my Spanish. But as you get a better mind and a stronger, like you want to be around things that are interesting and not talk about people. Like I feel like if you talk about people or movies or just things, I want to be the person that can talk to people about ideas. Ideas are what make the world change and grow, and questioning, not questioning around, but asking myself questions. What am I doing around this? And why am I doing that? And my husband and I have a rule around it now. We don't talk about people. We don't talk about books, or we talk about books, but they're usually certain books. And we don't talk about movies. We just talk about ideas. So that changed the whole.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like you having this cancer journey has really opened your heart. You've definitely grown more empathy and understanding. But I love how it's kind of also forced you to have limits,
Yeah.
right? It's forced you to look for the good and to take life a little bit more seriously and say, I can cut this crap out and this is more of what I want if I am going to be limited in this life. And so, but here's the thing too, Tressa, is that it's not like when I say forced, it's not like you didn't have an option. You did. Everyone has an option. Everyone can choose how they're going to respond or react to
Yeah.
something. And so there are individuals that have a battle with cancer that are very negative. Why me? And playing the victim role and just being depressed and upset. And I love your spirit. I think that's definitely going to help you. You know, I know you know this. For all of our listeners, I hope you understand that sometimes we cause our bodies to be sick. Mentally, we can cause our bodies to be sick. And mentally, we can cause our bodies to be
Yeah.
better. And I truly believe that's what's happening here, Tressa, is like your spirit and energy that you have that exudes from you is totally helping you to heal and be here today. Like, I love how you were emotional saying, I'm just happy to be here today. And I'm not surprised. You have a lot to help people learn. You have so much to do in this world. And I'm so grateful you're here. So I want to know, uh, tell us, like, there's probably some things that you mentioned that you had to kind of adjust in your lifestyle. What was like the biggest adjustment for you? Like, do you take naps now and maybe you didn't? Do you eat healthy and you didn't before? Like, what are some of those big changes for you?
I think I'm much more cautious about how I eat. So it's not that I don't go and get a hamburger in and out. I'm not saying I'm not that person. I'm the kind of person that will. I've been to consultations with different kinds of alternative medicines and just a looking at what my body's missing, and also a hormone specialist. So I probably spend more money and time on that now than I used to, but I'm trying not to be like, oh, this is giving me cancer and that's giving me cancer. I can't. I don't really care. I really just want to make sure that I'm sorry, my light just went off because I sat still. Okay. After like a half hour, my light turns off. Um, yeah, so supplements and been exercising probably more than I ever did before because I always took it for granted. I feel great. I'm just like so busy. I don't have time to do this and that. And so to be able to like take time for myself to go on walks and do a little bit of a lifting in the gym. And that's a huge deal for me. I know for some people that comes really easy and that's how they, that's how they clear their head. And I never got that. I didn't understand how exercising clears your head. And I'm starting to feel that now. So like new things are opening up to me too. Like I have some friends that are very healthy, that are very strict around what they even put on their like creams and anything. So I learn from these really smart people in that world, and I take what I can out of it, and I try not to be too crazy around it because I don't take anything to an extreme. It's just my nature because I want to know I can cheat. I want to know I can take a month off from working out because I may not feel great. And if I don't want to put that kind of pressure on myself. I'm not that way. But I think my health, my just kind of thinking about maybe what I eat and before I a lot more fruits and vegetables and a lot more of like sitting with myself and just kind of taking time to kind of think through things more. I'm just a doer. I'm not a thinker. My husband's the opposite of me. He can think and he can write and he can come up with like spreadsheets and like, oh my gosh, no. I'm not that. It's harder for me to even journal or so there's so many things on my list of things that I know I can do better, but everything has to be a baby step because if it's not going to be a habit and then you're not going to stick with it and then you just feel disappointed around it. So little changes, little things, little, you know, really honestly, I don't think we're really in complete control of our bodies and we have to accept what we have and we have to take that and do what we can to be physically the best we can without going to the extreme because I'm seeing a lot of extreme people working out and extreme they can't eat anything it's not organic and they can't. I don't know if I could set myself up for it. I just don't know if I could do it. I want to be that really disciplined person, but I always just say I wake up every day and then I'm going to make a decision that day of how I'm going to. Now that I have some health problems, I think, okay, I'm going to wake up and then when I wake up I'm going to figure out how I'm going to handle my day. And I think that's a really good practice, even if you don't have health problems, that you just give yourself some grace, right?
I love that. Yep. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to do a speed round with you. I'm going to ask you some questions. What is your favorite holiday?
Ooh, probably Thanksgiving.
Okay,
Yeah.
love it. Uh, would you prefer jewelry or home decor?
Ooh, that's hard because I get both.
Okay, say
But
both then. That's fine.
prefer, yeah, it just depends on. Ooh, yeah, that's hard. I,
What's your what's your favorite scent? It can be a perfume, it can
uh,
be any scent.
it's probably fresh lemons, but I do have.
Okay.
But I feel like fresh lemon. It's just that, and when you put it, I don't know. It's just, I love it. It's clean.
Okay. What's your favorite meal?
Probably some form of pasta.
Okay. And what is your favorite place to be? Maybe you've been there, maybe you haven't yet.
I would say probably just home now.
Just be home. Love
I
it.
feel
Marcy, do you have any questions?
I don't think so.
Okay, so Tressa, tell us what's next for you. Is there like something that you've been wanting to do that you plan to do in the future, or what's next?
so I right now because my business can run itself. Although I still have some, I do have some. I don't want to sell it. I don't want to. It's still part of me. I still do what I can to stay as involved as possible, but I want to just dive into some kind of service. So I don't, we've talked about going to Just Serve online since I really not qualified health wise to do like an LDS mission. I think I'm looking to do things that I'm going to be able to do staying from home. And so those will be, I don't know what that will open up to. I don't know if it's going to be, there's so many, you can do really anything. And it doesn't even have to be a specific with an organization. It can actually be like, I want to help at the elderly center. I want to like things that have to do with maybe some things that I love too. I would like to teach art classes. I'm really trying to learn Spanish. I don't know how much I can help in that, but I think if I could speak better Spanish, there's so much opportunity to help people in this area like Utah County. So many people that are Spanish speaking only. So that's my biggest wish that my Spanish was better. But there's so much opportunity every time you look around. I mean, but I've never had time. It's like you can't buy time. And once you have some time, that's worth more than any kind of physical anything you might have. I've always been all about being able to work my time the way I want. And so now that I feel like it's almost here and I can do and then do it on like as much as I can the way I can, I'm excited for that something like that to open up to me. So I'm looking. I'm looking.
I love that. That's way cool. Yeah. That is part of Marcy and I also feel that need. And we've always, been a part of different organizations, volunteering and things. And it's a big deal to us. And in our women's community, the Her community, we give part of our, proceeds, part of the monthly payments that everyone makes is going to an organization that helps women. And we vote on that every year. And so we just want to allow people to be a part of something bigger than what they feel like they could just do on their own.
Yeah.
So we are big fans of that. Good job. Okay, last, I want you to leave us with, if you could visit the future and visit your great-grandchildren, what words of advice would you give them?
This is something I just learned from Steve Jobs before he passed away. And there were 6 things he advised, and one of them is that life is 100% better if no one knows anything about you. So think about being in really making the most of your life and not looking around at what people are seeing about you inside. And then you should never take advice from anyone who you don't want to be in life. I love that. And I'm so scared of meeting new people and people that are better than me. That's something I need to work on. I would say try to get yourself a mentor. Try to get yourself someone in your life that you feel like can really inspire you and make you a better human. And then I would say my favorite thing is that you'll always have problems. You will always have some sort of conflict in your life. You must enjoy life with still while solving them. There is beauty in everything we experience, but you must be able to adjust. You can cry in the storm or dance in the rain.
Or both.
Yeah.
Right? We do. There's a season for it all. So
Yeah.
you're the best. Tressa, thank you so much. I love those closing quotes and thoughts for us all to ponder and just think of ways that we can climb the mountain and be better. And thank you for being such a light and an example to everyone around you. Okay, that ends our call today, and we're hoping that you listeners will follow us for our next call next week, and we'll see you all then. Bye.
Thank you for joining us. If you feel in your heart to be a part of our community for women, check us out at her.community.